O lance está hoje em Brasília, aqui na Arena BRB Mané Garrincha, para uma entrevista muito especial. Ellis, um prazer estar com você. É uma técnica bicampeã do mundo 2015 e 2019, conquistou com a seleção dos Estados Unidos. Hoje está na FIFA como diretora de futebol. Prazer imenso. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to Brazil.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Vamos acompanhar agora essa entrevista muito especial.
I think 2027 will be the biggest Women's World Cup ever hosted. I think it will be the best, and I think in large part because of the growth of the game and the level of play of the teams. We saw in 2023 that there were new teams coming in, Morocco, these teams that their first time debutantes in a World Cup, and look at how well they did. So I think this will be the most competitive on the pitch. I also think just where it's being played, first time in South America, in Brazil, the passion, the party that's going to be around this World Cup, it's going to be extraordinary. I think the cities that are going to host are beautiful, and I think a lot of fans will want to come and see this World Cup in Brazil. Yeah, very much so. I mean, listen, I think we recognize that women's football is still growing. We want to attract fans. We want to make the ticket prices affordable. We want to see people in the stadiums, full stadiums. These are big stadiums. So we want to make sure that this is accessible to the local people and obviously to the people that will come from around the world to watch it. So I think it's very much, we're working, we have a ticket strategy team. They come into the market, they look at we're looking at everything from what are the ticket prices for the women's leagues games here to, events. So they build out a strategy, but the directive is clear. We want to make sure that this is something that the Brazilian people can enjoy. I think at FIFA we recognize that, to have strong national teams, you need to have a strong domestic league. And we've seen it. I mean, in the US, we were on the third edition. So we had 2 leagues fail. We're now in I think the 11th or 12th year. So it does take time to build the leagues domestically, but they are very important. At FIFA now, we've purposely created a club world championship to incentivize people to invest in the infrastructure of club football. Club football is so important. It's the home of the player, right? It's the week in and week out where they show up, they train. Clubs have development pathways that they implement. It builds local fan bases. So, club football is very, very important, and I think we recognize that at FIFA. We've actually just hired 2 new people to come in, and their specific remit is women's club football. We're looking at how we can implement minimum standards in professional club football, so we have a benchmark. And how do we share best practices? How do we share through, whether it's bringing people together to have conversations or sharing information, how do we help the domestic leagues around the world grow in all the respective countries? So it is a priority, and recognize that here, in South America, we need to continue to provide opportunities for the local player to find a place to play. Yeah, I think as we see the women's game accelerate and grow, we're suddenly seeing, player transfers for $1 million. We're seeing transfer fees. So I think one of the things internally within FIFA is we are actually, they've been working on it almost for 2.5 years, but they have to bring in a lot of shareholders for people to come in and decide, what does that training compensation, how do we reward the clubs and the youth programs that are developing players? How do we, reward them with, which happens obviously on the men's side. That's going to be important too, because again, ultimately we want to incentivize the building and the pipeline and the development. So I think that is something that FIFA is, certainly we've been working on it. I think by 2027, I think we will have something out there that clubs can rely on and lean into. It's a heavy lift because you've got to please a lot of people and get a lot of opinions. Yes. and kind of form that, but there is a group that's working on it, both from a legal perspective, a sporting perspective, because I think it's important. We need to have more structure and more regulations so that we can start to, formalize the landscape a little better. Listen, I think it would be everybody's hope everybody that's a fan of football would hope that, Marta, but obviously that has to be her decision. Has to be her coach's decision. They make that decision. I'm not privy to that. But as a fan, as someone who's competed against her and seen her terrorize my teams, I think she's just such a special, special player, a generational player. That yes, I would love to see her play, here in 2027. I think it would be, I think Brazil as the host country, with the talent, with the success they've had, I'm hopeful that they can have a real run at winning this. I think it would be an amazing story. But I would love to see Marta lace up her boots one more time for just kind of like Messi. Messi's doing 2026, and he's obviously playing in America. It would be a fantastic story. Yeah. It's a great question. It's a very timely question, because we are seeing, as women's football is growing, the number of women in women's football, obviously the players, but in administrative roles, in coaching roles, it's not growing. So it's definitely something, we are looking at a pathway. I think with FIFA for the under 17, under 20 World Cups, there's a mandate. You must have a female head coach, assistant coach, one or the other. You can. My hope is that sometimes you hope for things to happen organically, and sometimes you have to legislate. I think we need to create more opportunities for women, and sometimes we have to push. And so I think FIFA will take that responsibility full on. It's a conversation that the president and I have had. How do we look at increasing the numbers of women players getting into coaching? Everything from, do we help support coaching licenses for women, and financially, in the US there's a scholarship to help women get into coaching. They scholarship their licensing programs because they're expensive. To how do we provide better opportunities and create more pathways for coaches and administrators? I think we need to have women sitting at making executive decisions. We need them in the conversations, not simply in administrative roles, but in roles that are decision makers. And that comes with continuing to educate and bring people on. And, I think in large part, the decision to hire me was partly like, listen, we'll bring in a woman into FIFA and sit at one of the biggest tables to help have also my lens on the landscape. Because, if you only look through one lens, you only see one thing. And the more people you can have at the table with different viewpoints, the more we can accelerate growth, and we can have different perspectives and discussions.
Aqui com a Marisa, ela que foi a primeira capitã da seleção brasileira, eterna capitã também. Então, Marisa, eu queria que você falasse qual a ideia das pioneiras em relação à Copa do Mundo de 27.
Bom, a nossa ideia, onde nós sempre estamos comentando quando estamos juntas, é que a Copa 2027 nós venhamos entrar em campo junto com as meninas mais jovens, né? A qual nós deixamos esse legado muito importante aí pra gente, e agradeço muito se isso acontecer. E creio que a nossa ideia vai juntar com vocês, e vocês vão fazer o melhor para que isso aconteça para nós, que é o nosso sonho.
Então fica aí o recado para a FIFA, né?
Sim, a FIFA é importante, né? Porque é o aval, é o ponto final, é o feedback que nós precisamos para que nós tenhamos esse retorno que seja bem-vindo, para que nós possamos entrar com as meninas.
Yeah, I watched the documentary. I think it's inspirational. I was an 80s baby, so I actually remember the 91 World Cup that many of these players played at, and many of my friends played for the US against, at the World Cup. So, I think one of the things that is very important when we talk about legacy, it's certainly honoring the past. And I think, given an opportunity to celebrate these players, we'll find a special way. I think that's important to, we especially, I know in FIFA, we have a legends program. We bring players in. We have different opportunities to celebrate the past. I also think it's important when we talk about legacy is what we want to build here. That I think that could be the greatest thing we could honor these players with, is building the legacy for the future here in Brazil. And would welcome, as we start to form working groups, and we discuss and we have organizational structures and look at legacy and what that looks like, perhaps we have a representative from that group within that committee. I think that would be a cool way for their voice to be heard directly as we talk about legacy. But I think that, you know, the idea for me, and I'm a coach at my core, is the future. You know, it's always about the future and how do we create this opportunity. I know for myself, sport has been a gift in my life. When I watched the documentary, I saw those players and the emotion that they had and the gift that they had together on that journey. That's what we want to do. We want to create more opportunities and experiences for young girls to have a journey of development and strength and growth and opportunity and competitiveness to experience that. And so that's everything from, you know, what we, you know, at FIFA, what we bring in, we invest, we reinvest. I mean, we're a non-profit. We start academies all around the world. You know, I work closely with Arsene Wenger. He has the talent development scheme. The program is give every talent a chance. So we're putting academies in different countries, investing in infrastructure, investing in coaching. Sometimes the best way to create change is to invest in the teachers, right? So I think, you know, there's a lot of things that we're looking at as we look at Brazil and what the legacy could look like. But my hope is, you know, socially, that women are seen in a light of respect of what they're doing on the pitch. For the young girls, it's to inspire them to, you know, have the dream of lifting a World Cup trophy one day. I think, you know, I was with a young group of girls yesterday at ADEF locally here and watching them play futsal. And I asked them, I said, how many of you are watching the futsal World Championships, the first one in the Philippines happening right now? And they put their hands up and they said, how many of you think about winning a World Cup? And they all put their hands up. And that's what the essence of sport is, right? That's the beauty of what sport can do. It can help shape your dreams and motivate you to do things that maybe are tough. And I gave a similar message to them. I'm like, if you have that dream, you're going to have to push at times. You're going to have to persist. You're going to have to struggle. But, and I think about coming full circle to watching that video. That's what those women did. And on their shoulders, look at what we're building. And I think we want to continue this here and elevate the game and the women's game in Brazil.